had just gotten home. It was Friday, and I was looking forward to the weekend. My wife was waiting for me. Not waiting for me as she usually did with a smile and a peck, but fidgeting and seemingly determined about something. Something was up, and it didn't look good. Honey, I said. I stopped and looked at her. Something wrong? Where are the children? It was Friday, and the kids should have been home. The children are with Mom until Monday. John, I have to talk to you. I have to tell you something, and I need you to listen and to try to understand. Oh my, this is going to be so hard, she said, looking down. She saw my concern and tried to reassure me. She said, it's not something bad, but, well, it might be hard for you to get where I'm coming from, at least initially. But if you think about it, and if you love me, you'll at least try to understand. Can you do that for me, she said. Her voice was almost pleading. I guess so. I will try to understand, I said. Thank you, she said. John, it's something that's been on my mind for a long time. Something that at first may sound dumb, strange. Okay, John, I want to have sex with other men. Huh? What? I started to laugh, but the look in her eyes did not invite humor. I stopped. You're serious, aren't you? You're divorcing me, is that it? No, 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 she cried. I love you more than anything. I will never leave you, John. You can be sure of that. This is just something that I need to do. Since I just flat refuse to cheat on you, to sneak around, I need you to try and understand my need to, well, do this. I need you to agree to allow me this chance. Can you understand what I'm saying? At first I was speechless, but then something else began to take over inside of me. It was anger. Understand? No, I don't understand, I said, and I don't agree to any such thing. John, I'm going to do this whether you like it or not. I was hoping I could get you to understand this need I have. I have never cheated on you, and I am not going to do so now. I am letting you know up front. I promise to take precautions and to deny you nothing in our bed. But she could see my mind was wandering. I wasn't hearing her anymore, or maybe I was. I just wasn't reacting like she thought I should. John Mason, are you hearing me? This has nothing to do with us. Nothing, am I clear? She paused and watched for my reaction. I didn't move. I just sat there staring. I appeared to be all but catatonic. My wife of 17 years had just destroyed me and expected me to actually like it, or at least tolerate it. I didn't, and I wouldn't, not ever. John, I need this. I am getting to the stage in life where I really need this. Please understand, I was a virgin when we married. I have never known another man. I hardly even ever made out before I met you. I really, really need to know what it is all about, sex, I mean. The difference that I don't know. I just need to try it. It's only about sex, not love. Never love except with you. I continued to stare. I was afraid to say anything. I wanted to kill her. My wife wanted to explore other men. Not even a man, but men. The most shocking part of the whole mess, and it was a big-ass mess, was that she expected me to be okay with it. John, say something, said his wife. Veronica, I couldn't finish. I rose and headed upstairs to the bedroom, our bedroom. What had been our bedroom? Now it was nothing to me. I was sick and broken spiritually. My body was devoid of sensation. I was giddy with fear. It had only taken her 15 minutes, maybe less, to destroy our marriage. I sat on the bed thinking, or rather trying to think. I knew I had to get out of the house and away from my wife, a wife that was about to cuckold me, and she was going to do it. How had she phrased it? Whether I liked it or not? I had been a marathon runner in college. Running or long-range walking always helped me to clarify my thinking. I decided to walk far. I changed out of my suit and into loose-fitting jeans, a Henley, and my $200 running shoes. I grabbed my wallet, a cap, and my sunglasses. I went back downstairs. Veronica was still sitting where she had when she announced her plans to experiment sexually with other men. I stood for a moment staring at her once again. She seemed a stranger to me. I looked back at her, my hand on the doorknob. Who are you? I said. I turned and walked out the door. John? Where? Her words were lost as I slammed the door hard behind me. I moved at a rapid pace. I was already past the neighbor's house when I heard her yelling for me to come back and talk to her. She caught up to me and walked beside me until she was out of breath. John, where are you going? We need to talk. I love you. I am not doing this to hurt you. There is still in us, really. I love you. Please come back. John. She gave up. I think she collapsed on the sidewalk, but I didn't turn to see. I couldn't look at her. She was in no way able to maintain the pace I was setting. I could still do a marathon in under 3 hours with no sweat. Soon I was 2 blocks up the street, and she was no longer anywhere to be seen. I turned the corner and changed gears. I went into overdrive, as I called it. I was cruising. I could go forever at this pace, and maybe I would. We met in college. She was handing out cups of water to participants in a 10K tri-meet. I had one to race that day. I had one, I later told her, because I was trying to get back to find her before she got away from me. I had caught her just in time, just before she would have been lost in the crowd of fans, family members, and supporters. We'd hit it off immediately. She was a secretary to the dean of the business school. She'd never finished college, but she had managed to land a signature of a job because of her attention to detail and her ability to navigate around the printed word. I was a grad student at the time in electronics and computer science, a double major. We dated for 6 months before we had sex, and it was mind-blowing. Though a virgin, the girl could fuck, and she loved it. It never occurred to me at the time, but she was a natural-born slut. There were signs, she just never became one. For months after my graduation and 14 months after we'd met, we married. I was 26, and Ronnie was a year older than me at 27. Yes, and I'll say it again, she was still a virgin at age 27. Callie and John Jr. came along in years 9 and 10 of our marriage respectively, and we prospered. Ronnie was still a secretary for the dean, and I was working as a computer systems engineer for Peters Limited, a company that was doing cutting-edge research and development for the military. My boss and the owner of Peters Limited was Bill Schuler, a 60-ish bachelor with an almost manic work ethic. Bill and I were not merely boss and employee, we were close friends. Veronica and I had now been married 17 wonderful years, or so I had thought. That is, I had thought that they had been wonderful. Evidently, Veronica thought otherwise. During the past several months, Ronnie had become, well, antsy. No big G, just kind of short with me on occasion and less often with the children as well. This last had caused a couple of pretty heated arguments. Being short with me was one thing, but not with the children. I wasn't going for that. I considered that she might be going through a change of life. I wasn't much up on female biology, but I was aware of some things. I had been meaning to check into it more, but I just never got around to it. Now, as I walked, I wished I had. I don't know where your brother is, Roberta Bobby. He just got up and walked out of the house, and I haven't seen him since 5 p.m. Friday, said Veronica. That's why I called you. I've been frantic. I'm really worried, Bobby. Bobby, what am I going to do? Roberta Mason could have been my wife's twin, and they had more than once been taken as sisters. Both had flowing red hair, curvaceous figures, and the cutest freckles that any man could want. Roberta was maybe an inch taller than Ronnie at 5'7", but otherwise they were near clones of each other. But Bobby was very different in personality. She was tough-minded, slow to speak, and less challenged to do so, and still single at age 40. No, she wasn't gay, but she liked being independent, and so she was. Are we talking about our John, my brother? Said Roberta Mason. This is not like him. We had a little tiff, and he just got up and walked out. I tried to get him to talk to me, but he wouldn't, said Veronica. Ronnie will find him. I don't know what you two argued about, but if he walked out on you and his children, it had to have been something pretty bad. I don't suppose you'd like to enlighten me, said Bobby. It's personal, said Veronica, and it was certainly nothing that should have caused him to leave us. I told him a dozen times I loved him. Why can't he get that through his head? Well, I don't know, but when we find him, I'm going to find out. Anyway, you waited long enough to call me. He's had 2 days' head start, said Roberta. Her words carried a hint of sarcasm. The two sisters-in-law got along well, but Roberta, a psychologist, always felt that Veronica was a little ditzy. Which way did he go? Said Roberta. He was on foot, you say. What was he wearing? He went eastward, Baxter. A dark green T-shirt and jeans. A Cubs baseball cap, too, I think, said Veronica. His coat? Prompted Roberta. No, he wasn't wearing a coat. Get this, Ronnie, it's freezing out there. He didn't take a coat. He didn't drive his car. Well, he couldn't have gotten far. We should be able to find him. Toward Baxter? Yes. Well, he can't be heading there. It's more than 100 miles away. But you say in that general direction. Okay, stay here and man the phone in case he calls. I have my cell. Keep me informed, said Roberta. I will, said Veronica. The road was icy, so Roberta Mason was driving under the speed limit. She was 10 miles out of town when her cell rang. She pulled over to answer it. "He's where?" "In Baxter." "Oh my God." "All right, I'm heading there," said Roberta, and she hung up. The lockup in Baxter, a town of 150, seldom had anyone in residence. But tonight it had me. And I didn't give shit. The meal was hot and the cell was warm. Life couldn't get any better than this, I thought sardonically. I heard the steel door at the end of the hall clang open. I couldn't see who was coming, but the footsteps alerted me to someone coming to see me. I was the only prisoner in the place, so it had to be me. "Well, sailor," said my sister, "are you proud of yourself?" I stared. "So she called you," I said. "Yes, but I was already on the road looking for you. You better have a damn good reason for gallivanting around the countryside on foot with no coat. You know you have little ones and a wife at home worried sick about you," said Roberta. "Yeah, right," I said sarcastically. "The kids maybe, but not Veronica. She didn't tell you, did she?" "No, I guess not," said Roberta, her eyes narrowing. "She just said you had a tiff, and then you left. She said she begged you not to go. Nothing like half-truths to dump the blame off on somebody else. Well, we did have a little tiff, as she calls it. It was kind of hard for me to avoid since she announced that she intended to fuck other men whether I liked it or not," I said. Roberta's face betrayed nothing. "What did you say? Did I stutter?" "She told me of her plans to fuck around on me whether I liked it or not. I had to get out of there, so here I am all warm and cozy," I said. The guard opened my cell door and shook his head. I think he felt sympathetic toward me. We started walking toward the front receiving area. "You've been bailed out, but you'll have to return by Friday to plead," said Morgan, the jailer. He handed me a paper. I didn't even look at it. "I could do that later. Look, pay the fine next Friday. It's only a misdemeanor. You'll have to pay the damage too, but then it will be all done." I nodded at the logic of his advice. The fight in the bar had been nothing, but a couple of chairs had been broken and a table damaged and a mirror also broken. The bartender, a not too bad-looking woman, had pointed to me as the troublemaker, so they'd hauled me off. I deserved it. I made no protest. I was too drunk to say anything coherent in any event. On the 2-hour-plus drive back, my sister grilled me. Having told her my story, she was silent for some time. Then she began her analysis. I was her patient, and she was going to help whether I liked it or not. "Women, John, women go through changes men can't understand. It's a hormonal thing. It frightens us. It can make us feel insecure. Lots of things," she said. "I'm not an idiot, Bobby, but other women don't go out and fuck other men in order to get better," I said with conviction. "Actually, they do, John. 60% of men and 40% of women screw around during their marriage. It's the biggest reason for the 52% divorce rate in the state. Veronica is going through that stage in her life now, and she needs your support." I started to say something, but she raised her hands to stop me. "No, I am not saying that you should let her fuck other men, but you need to talk to her, to hold her hand, and to lead her out of the place she's at. She needs you, and I'm afraid it's going to take a while. Women at our age need their men to be strong for them, to support them, and be their rock. Bobby, I'm willing to do anything to help Veronica get by this. But if she lets another man stick his penis inside of her, we're through. No ifs, no ands, no buts ever. And let it be known, if she does disrespect me, I will do my level best to destroy both her and her lover or lovers." Bobby was silent again. I hated it when she was thinking. It always felt like she was judging me. The conversation shifted to less weighty matters. "You walked 100 miles in 2 days," she said. "Yeah, so what? So I did. I needed to think," I said. "Oh, nothing. It was a hell of a feat, especially given the temperatures and road conditions at this time of year." "What were you thinking?" she said. She meant how could I not have thought about the conditions of the weather and the roads. But I extrapolated her words to mean my thoughts about Veronica, myself, and our marriage. Christmas was 3 weeks away. It was going to be a hell of a holiday. What was I going to find under the tree we still hadn't put up? A used condom may have somebody else's sperm inside of it. I was angry. I just couldn't go home yet. "Drop me at Peter's," I said. "But it's Sunday." "John, I can't go there right now. I need to be alone for a while still. I'll go there tomorrow." "You can tell her that," I said. She seemed to understand. "I'll talk to her," said Bobby. "She was pretty worried about you." I think she'll hold off on her plans if she's really even made any, now that she knows how you feel about things. Just don't do anything rash, okay? I won't. I just need to think some more, I said. She dropped me, and I saw her drive off as I went inside to my office. Roberta thought that Veronica would hold off on her plans. I, on the other hand, wondered if she hadn't already acted on them, and if so, with who? Hell of a thing when a man loses trust in his wife, I thought. Hell of a thing. Ronnie, he's afraid he's lost you, said Roberta as she was shucking her coat and hanging it on the rack just inside the front door. She hadn't even been bothered with a greeting. Nonsense, said Ronnie. I told him he'd never lose me. Nonsense. When you told him you were going to make love to other men? Get real, Veronica. Any man would be thinking what he's thinking. Veronica looked troubled. He told you then, she said. Of course he told me. I'm his sister. How long did you think you could keep something like that a secret anyway? Said Roberta. It was just something I've always wanted to know about. Okay to do, said Veronica, seeing her sister-in-law's look. Do it, and you've lost him, your children, and most of the friends and relatives who love you, said Roberta. Don't you realize that? Veronica couldn't meet the other's eyes. I hoped that he would understand my need. It's something that has consumed me for a very long time, Roberta. I don't know if I can help myself. John has always understood me. He's just got to understand me this time, too. I can't live without him, but I don't know if I not do what I so need to do with this other, said Veronica. I can try, but I might end up just out and out cheating on him. That's the real danger, and I know it. You have no idea how overpowering this feeling, this need inside of me is, said Veronica. Actually, I think I do, said Roberta. Why do you think that I never married? I'm not gay and I love men, but I am educated enough to know that I could never remain faithful to one man only. So again, I never married. But Veronica, you are married, and what you are proposing is so bizarre, given that little fact that you stand to lose all if you don't clean up your act muy pronto, said Roberta. I guess you're right, said Veronica. She started to sob. Roberta got up and went to her and held her. It'll be all right. I will stay with you tonight, and tomorrow when he returns, I'll be here to referee this thing. Thank you, Roberta. I don't know if I could face him given his anger, but you have to give up this crazy idea of letting other men have you. But even more than that, you have to convince your husband that he has nothing to fear, and that may be one very large task, said Roberta. Veronica nodded. She allowed herself a small smile. Her sister-in-law didn't notice the slight narrowing of her eyes when she'd heard her last words. You have to convince your husband. Veronica knew now that getting her husband's permission was never going to happen, and she had a choice to make. She could dump her plans and never revisit them, or she could make sure to convince her husband that she had. Those were two very different things. But first things first, she had to get him back. After all, she did love him more than anything. That much was absolutely true. For the first time since he'd stormed out, Veronica felt as if she had things figured out. She would soon know. The next morning, I awoke having slept on the couch in my office. I was a little stiff, the distance walk, and the less than comfortable sleeping arrangements had had their effect on me. I was used to marathon distances for time, but long military-type endurance walks were something I'd only done a few times and not in the last 10 years. I was kind of proud of myself, actually. I hadn't lost it, not yet. I pulled up in front of the house a little after 10 a.m. I knew that Callie and John Jr. would be off to school. She opened the door for me and threw her arms around me, squeezing me tightly. She seemed genuinely relieved that I was okay and back. Oh, honey, I was so worried. Forget everything I said. I was an idiot. I had a long talk with Bobby, and she made me understand. I'm just so glad you're back, said my wife. Whoa, I said. I was a little suspicious that she had given up on something that just a few days before she refused to even discuss giving up. There was Bobby, of course. I'm sure she had laid it out for her, but there was something I just couldn't put my finger on it. Good. I hope you mean it. It was all too easy, too cut and dried. I finally figured out what it was I couldn't put my finger on. I didn't trust her. Hell of a deal. We headed into the kitchen. Bobby was seated at the table sipping her inevitable tea. Hi, Bobby. So you're here to back up her story, I snickered. Yes, so she said. We talked long and deep, John. She gets it. I hope you two can get by this. It really was just a dumb female head trip, John. I nodded. As much as I respected Bobby and her skills, I was still very loath to take anything for granted. Not after the scene on Friday. Bobby hadn't seen her, heard her. I had. The next several days, Veronica did everything she could to reassure me. I had almost begun to accept the dumb female head trip analysis of Bobby's. Then Thursday, there was the phone call. I picked it up, heard something in the background over the line, and then whoever it was hung up on me. Weird. I didn't mention the call to Veronica. I thought about what I heard in the background. I had it. The words were, call cell. Call my cell. That had to be it. I went upstairs. I hoped I was right. I was. Her cell was on the dresser. I checked the call history. I knew most of the numbers. I wrote down the 6 I did not know. I smiled at the luck. I didn't have a top security clearance for nothing. Working for the military, I knew I could find out who the numbers belonged to very easily. It would be illegal as hell, of course, but my very own boss had used his clearance to nail his cheating wife. But a year passed. I was about to do the same thing. This was not a no-fault state. If I caught her and had the evidence, her ass was mine and her lovers too were lovers. I was feeling good. That night, the sex was good, actually better than good. She sure made a turnaround over the past 6 days. I hoped I wouldn't have to be giving that up anytime soon. I was in the lab early. I had to catch Tim before he headed out into the field. Tim was our systems installer and field techie. He and I had downed more than a few brews rooting for our alma mater, Ohio State. Tim, got a minute, I said as he passed me on his way out. He stopped. Sure, John, what's up? He said. Come on into my office. I got a problem and I need your help, I said. We sat inside and Tim plopped down in a chair in front of the desk. I took a seat next to him. Tim, you remember last year when Mr. Peters had you do some snooping for him? He was suddenly all ears. Oh no, John, not you too, he said. I'm not sure. But I have reason to be worried. Can you help me? John, I can. But it's a risk. Unless you're pretty damn sure I am Tim, he nodded. Okay, you got it. Just don't talk about it. Not even to me when and if I have anything I will contact you, okay with that, he said. Yeah, I'll be patient, just do some spot checking over, say, the next month, and then get back to me if there's nothing great. If there is, I got you. He said, here's some phone numbers. I pulled from her cell. I don't know them. It might be nothing, but then again, maybe it's the whole enchilada, I said. He nodded. Good. It's a good place to start. It's not even illegal if your name is on the account. It is, I said. I had to think my wife was a blithering idiot. She knew I was tech-savvy and that I had friends who were geniuses in the field. She knew I could find out anything that I wanted to. If she was going to cheat, she stood no chance of getting away with it unless she was able to utterly allay my concerns. That was pretty thin bread to be spreading your shit on, but it was the only thing that made any sense. Things settled down at the house. The kids were happy, Veronica was happy, and I pretended to be happy. A week later, my world crashed. Tim called and asked me to meet him at our favorite hangout. I checked out the numbers, he said. I got the addresses. Check them out too. And bingo, I caught her at 2 of them on successive days. John, I got pictures, film, and audio. Let it be enough to say that your wife is definitely cheating on you. Sorry, John. No sweat, man. Do me a favor. Get more, especially more film. I have plans for this broad. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to take her down and her lovers with her. You got it. John, you got to know. This was so easy. I kind of wonder if she isn't running some kind of a sting. Keep it in mind. I just don't see your wife as being this dumb. I won't be using any of this stuff in court anyway. I have another use in mind, I said. He smiled. Tim did love espionage. It took 3 weeks. It was amazed at the depth of information Tim was able to amass. I now had everything on these shirt-ass yahoos but their DNA matrices, and I could get those too if it became necessary. Now it was just a matter of picking my time and battleground. I needed to speak with Bobby. We sat watching the film in her office. Jeetsus, I can't believe it. She even had me fooled, said my sister. What pisses me off the most is that I know I've been getting sloppy seconds at least sometimes, I said. John, forget about revenge. Dump her sorry ass, but forget about revenge. It'll only eat at you in the afterglow, and someday your kids are going to be making judgments about the both of you. Don't give her any ammunition, she said. I was writhing in mental agony, but I knew she was right. Revenge, at least anything overt, was out of the question, but that did not mean I couldn't get back at the lovers. She was gonna be one very unpopular lady in very short order if I could work it. Okay, it turned out that she had 5 lovers, not 6. The other number I'd secured had been a wrong number to her cell, for all of her liaisons were married. All of the married 4 had children underage. 2 were men whose careers I could seriously compromise with very little effort. One a state politician, the power of a woman's sexual drive. Power had indeed corrupted her absolutely. I now had a far better understanding of my sister's choice to remain single for so long. Clearly, Veronica would have been well served to have done the same. My only concern was for the children of the cheaters and, of course, my own. Mine would be with me. About that there would be no compromise. I would allow Veronica open-ended visitation, but no boyfriends would ever be allowed near them, or else. I was going to give her the house, but take everything else. I would move myself and the children into a very nice 3-bedroom condo close to the new elementary school that each of them would be attending. It was time to go to war. A techie friend of mine blurred my wife's face in 5 of the most damning videos and made copies for the wives and important others in the lives of the 5 assholes. 2 other copies were made to send to a specially selected TV station to bring down the poll on the priest. I thought about suing the assholes too, but that would have left Veronica open to cross in court, and I needed to protect her to some degree in order to protect my children. I was at least partially heeding Bobby's advice. It occurred to me that technology might just put an end to extramarital affairs at some time in the future. It was getting just too easy to nail these jackasses. On D-Day, I went to work early. I stared at my computer. I had it set up and ready to go. 1 double click and 4 husbands would likely soon be 4 ex-husbands, and 1 other guy would probably be spending a long time singing hymns in some remote monastery. I double-clicked. Oh yes, there would soon be hell to pay. I smiled. I was Joshua at the walls of Jericho, and damn walls would be a-tumbling down, down, down. I told my section boss that I was taking the rest of the day off, and I went home. I wondered how long it would be before Veronica got the news, or even if she would. Just in case, I loaded one of the videos in the player and turned on the TV. 1 button to push, and she would be treated to herself starring in some very provocative film clips. It would signal the end of many things, our marriage included. I went upstairs to take a nap. I had a thought. I went to the phone, picked up the pad there, and wrote a note on it. It said simply, "Play video." An hour later, I heard her car and the garage door open and close. She was home. I waited at the top of the stairs, more or less out of sight. I saw her stop in front of the TV and read the tape note. She walked over to the player and punched the start button. I could see she was nervous. I couldn't see the video as it played, but no more than 1 minute into it, she fainted. The video continued to play. I came downstairs and turned off the machine. She arrived about half an hour later. I was sitting on the couch waiting for her to come out of it. She saw me. "I guess you hate me, don't you?" she said groggily. "Yes." "No chance for me?" "None," I said. "I will give you the house. The kids will live with me. Everything else, stocks, bonds, savings, will be mine. If you don't fight me, I will let you save a modicum of your self-respect. If you do fight me, I will ruin you. John, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. I needed to do it or thought I did. I'm sorry. I know you're Veronica, but what you've done is unforgivable, way, way beyond the pale. I warned you. Now it's caught up with you and the men too, as we speak. They're in the process of being ruined. I wouldn't be answering your cell anytime soon. You're not going to be real welcome around them is the way I figure it. I have already leased a place. The children will be taken there by Bobby after school today. You will be allowed visitation whenever you want, but none of your men friends, not ever them. Are we clear? She nodded. So far to her credit, she hadn't begun to cry or make excuses. I figured that at least the tears would come about 2 minutes after I left. I proceeded to do that now. All of the maids were divorced by their wives and taken to the cleaners. The priest was reassigned, but I never discovered where. The Pole is now selling used cars. Veronica still works for the dean. She sees the children often. It was a task to have them understand why Mommy wasn't living with us anymore. But somehow we got by it. Veronica dates every once in a while. I think some of her office friends fix her up, but that's just speculation. I know for a fact that the idea of slutting around no longer has any appeal for her. She'll be with us at Christmas, she's still family, but she knows she blew it big time and has had the decency not to push it with me. Sex, it can be such a killer.